Hello and welcome along. It's that time again. Another interview from the Honest Football Podcast. This week we talk to current Wycombe Wanderers defender Joe Jacobson about his brilliant career in the professional game. We discuss some of the great players he's played alongside while making his way up to the professional ranks at his home city club Cardiff, who he supported as a boy. We also talk about international honours at Wales under-21 level, a side he captained. We then talk about his first team career playing for clubs such as Accrington, Bristol Rovers, Oldham, Shrewsbury and currently Wycombe Wanderers of course, including some remarkable moments, cup runs. So it's a really fascinating interview. Joe was kind enough to give us a significant amount of his time, and his enthusiasm for football shone through immediately. So we really hope you enjoy this one. If you do, please put a thumbs up on the video and subscribe to the channel for regular content on YouTube. You can also follow us on our other platforms, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and you can keep up to date with us on Twitter at HonestFootball3. But I really hope you enjoy this one, and thanks again to Joe for joining us. Okay, I'm delighted to be joined by Joe now, and I'll start as I always do by taking you back to your childhood. So what's the first thing you remember from football, be it as a fan, a player, whatever it may be?
The first game I think I ever went to, which is one of the earliest memories, was my dad took me to Wales v Romania, I think it was, just before the '94 World Cup. I think it was the qualifying for it. I think Wales needed to win, and I think they lost 2-1. I think it was the same day that England won 7-1 against San Marino or something like that. And they needed to win 7-0. So that was one of the earliest memories I have of football. And again, just playing at home. I had an older brother who was a couple of years older, so just playing in the garden with him and my dad, just non-stop whenever we could, was just my childhood memories of football, really. Yeah, getting beaten up by him all the time.
Fantastic. And then I guess thinking more competitively, whether it be Sunday League, whatever it may be, what's your first memories of playing competitive football?
I joined a team, again, my brother's team. I joined the under, I can't remember what age it was, 7 or 8 or something. Went down. We didn't even have proper goals, like sticks put in the ground as the goal. But yeah, I just remember turning up to that team and didn't know anyone, but I went on and scored. I think just stayed with that Sunday League team throughout until I couldn't play any longer for them. So I had really great memories. We had a really good team that a few boys ended up getting contracts at clubs and things like that around the country. So we had a pretty strong team, travelled around Europe, went to tournaments and things like that. So it was it was pretty cool, and probably, as everyone says, one of the most enjoyable times you do have in football.
Absolutely, I think we can all agree with that. And I guess the final question from your childhood football is the first you remember on TV, whether it be the club you supported or just a memorable game. What was your first moment growing up on TV watching football?
The earliest game I can remember was watching the '94 World Cup final. My dad let me stay up, and the Brazil, Italy. Is it Brazil, Italy? I think it was the final with the penalties, and Baggio missed the pen, didn't he? And for some reason, I liked him throughout the World Cup, and I followed. Weirdly, I kind of liked him and grew up being a bit of a Baggio fan. So I don't know whether it's from missing a penalty, but that was probably the earliest one I can remember.
And then I guess moving on to growing up for yourself, obviously your talent was spotted quite early on and you ended up in a professional academy. So talk to me about the experience of growing up in an academy.
It was something that I never really thought about at the time. I just thought I was at Cardiff from the age of 9, I think, up until 21 or 20. And it was something that I was just involved in. You didn't really think about, I'm in a privileged position to be training a few times a week with all the best players from around South Wales, and you just you turn up there, you become your mates, and that was it. And I loved it. It was tough. I was never the best player in the age group. There was always players who were ahead of me, and I was kind of consistent, and there'd be players for a year or two that would be the ones talked about, and then they drop off and things like that. So it wasn't up until I was probably 17, 18 where I started getting recognition as, he's got a chance of kind of making it. So throughout the youth team, I just loved it. I just enjoyed playing as much football as I can, and as cliche as it is, I was just happy just to be training there and yeah, that was kind of it.
Oh, I guess that leads on to a question we've asked a few pros before, because you speak about the ones that are talked about in the youth team. How much of it do you think boils down to talent, or would you say having the mentality and the desire to be a professional takes you beyond that at times?
Definitely the desire and your attitude, want to do it and work hard. From, you know, up until you finish growing at what, 18, 19 years old, there's people grow at different rates, at different speeds. I remember there was a boy who was always playing a year above, who was bigger than everyone, who was more talented, and he was the one going to be playing, getting pro contract. And he ended up being, you know, I think he stopped growing at 14 or something. He ended up being smaller than everyone, out the game, never, you know, made it at all. So it's difficult at those age. You can't get too disheartened by it. There's a lot of setbacks, and I think as well in the academy at the time when I was there, those players kind of got a bit more recognition. They're a bit more lenient towards them, and they were the ones, you know, that the coaches wanted to push through and things like that. So you can't let that affect you. You kind of just keep working for yourself, really. And everyone will say it, that the desire, you need to be able to play football. That's basics. But even in the program now, I see players who have half the talent of other players, but their desire and commitment towards making it is far outweighs anything else. And as a manager, you want a player like that who's going to learn and fight and give everything they've got and never leave anything on the pitch. The talented player might turn up for one game, two games. Obviously, at the top level, they've got everything. They've got the talent and the desire and commitment. And probably lower down you go, people have less of one. But yeah, definitely, if you've got that work ethic and that drive, then that will outweigh everything else, I think.
Perfect. And then I guess moving on to the early days as a pro for you, talk me through that experience. Obviously, you're a Cardiff boy, and then you got the chance to make your debut for Cardiff. What was that feeling like that day?
Oh, that was incredible. I grew up as a Cardiff fan, so I used to go to the games. We had season tickets. We travelled to away games as well. So it was weird that to make my debut felt so far away throughout the whole of my YTA. It was only right at the end of my third year where I started. I was doing well. That third year was probably the start of when I was kind of showing people what I'm about and getting involved in first team training and things like that. And I remember being told on the Friday that I was going to be in the squad, but it didn't really register. And I remember turning up on the Saturday just in my tracksuit, just as normal, like I was going to help out and, you know, be ball boy. The manager was like, "Where's your suit? You should be in the suit," you know. And I was like, "Well, I didn't know. I didn't realise." So anyway, I was on the bench, and my family there made my debut, which was, yeah, it was awesome. One of the best feelings I've ever had in football. And yeah, for 10 minutes I ran around just trying to be a madman. Yeah, no, I loved every minute of it. It was brilliant. But then straight after the game, I remember just thinking, well, I've got to go and help out my mates now. Who we at the time we used to have to do jobs. We have to clean the change rooms out and get the boots sorted and the balls and everything. So I went straight back and did all that straight after playing in this game. Which yeah, I naively, well, but I didn't want to think that, you know, I've done something now, I'm going to leave that and
Yeah.
things like that. And yeah, that was but that day was surreal. I remember just going back and seeing some friends back home and just being normal and just being like, I've just played in the championship at 19 or whatever, and now I'm just going to hang out with my mates. It was yeah, it was a pretty cool day.
It's good to know from the pros we hear from that you still get that feeling like an excited child when you get to make a debut for your hometown team. It's something that we hope doesn't get lost in the game. So to hear it is absolutely fantastic for us.
Yeah.
I guess moving on, obviously we'll talk about your loan spells out a little bit, but the second of those was at Bristol Rovers, which then became sort of the first home of your football career. So talk to me about your experience there, and then I want to move on to a couple of particular moments there as well.
Yeah, the first loan spell I had there, or the start of the loan spell, was great. I managed to get in a team that we went on a ridiculous run. I think when I signed there, we were like 14th, 15th, and ended up getting in the playoffs on the last day of the season. Literally the last kick of the game, we scored to get into the playoffs, and
Yeah.
we had such momentum, carried it on, and went through the playoffs. And unfortunately, my loan ran out before the final, so I played in the two semi-finals.
Yeah.
Wasn't allowed to play at Wembley in the final, which was horrible. It's heartbreaking. heartbreaking. But they were great. I travelled up with the team. I stayed in a hotel with them. I was involved. I still went and trained with them. I think we trained at Arsenal's training ground the day before. So little things like that. It was pretty cool. And fortunately got promoted, and then they offered me a contract to stay for a couple of years. I still had a contract at Cardiff left, which in looking back now, if Cardiff kind of made it a bit more that they wanted to keep me, then I probably would have stayed there. But I think because they were just like, it's up to you. If you want to go, you can go. It didn't make it hard for me to leave. I thought I'm just loving playing first team football, and I didn't want to stop that. I didn't want to go and play reserve team football again. So had the opportunity to just drop down one division, but knew I was going to play. And I'm glad I did, because I could have stayed at Cardiff and not played and filtered out. So that was kind of the start of me being consistently involved in the first team, which I loved.
I'm glad you alluded to one of the things I was going to mention about Bristol Rovers, which was missing out on a playoff final due to your loan timings, which thankfully a problem that isn't the case anymore, because the 3-month loan thing's gone out of English football.
Yeah.
But I guess the other one I wanted to ask you about was a bit of an FA Cup run you had with Bristol Rovers as well. And you scored quite famously in a penalty shootout against a Premier League team at the time and went on a run to the quarter-final. So what was that experience like? Is it as special as fans think it is for a lower league team?
Oh yeah, that was incredible. It was really strange, because we played the start, like the early rounds of the FA Cup as they are every season. You think, right, get to the third round and see how that goes. We got to the third round and played against Fulham, who at the time were having a really bad spell of it in the Premier League, and I think they were bottom, and Roy Hodgson just taken over. And we went down to there, and I think we took them back to our place, and our pitch at the time was terrible. And they had these players, Premier League players, probably thinking, what's going on here? And we eventually, I think we drew 0-0, but we beat them on penalties, which was pretty awesome. And it was nice. That was the first kind of big cup upset that I'd been involved in. But then we were like so excited for the fourth round, thinking who we're going to get next, and we got Barnet at the conference at the time. And we're thinking, you know what, it was a bit strange then. But then it also gave us a great opportunity to kind of progress, which luckily we did. And I think we had Southampton in the fifth round, which Ricky Lambert scored a goal to win 1-0. And from that fifth round, I think was live on BBC. And I think every game then pretty much gets televised. So there was always a lot more feature on us and things like that. And especially with our home pitch, people were saying there's upsets going to be happened, and we got to be in the bottom ranked team left, which is also quite a proud moment for us. And it was the year when all the big teams were knocked out, and I think we got to the quarter final, and there was only 2 Premier League teams left, Man United and Portsmouth, who were playing against each other. So weirdly, we were thinking, as ridiculous as it is, if we could get to the semi-final and play a championship team, like who knows what could happen. But we got drawn against West Brom, who completely outplayed us that day, and thoroughly deserved to kind of go on. But then being a Cardiff fan, Cardiff got to the semi-final and the final, which I went to both games at Wembley anyway. So I kind of was at every single round of the FA Cup that season, whether playing or supporting, which was quite fun.
Brilliant. I guess I wanted to ask you about that Barnet game in particular. When you're a player and you've had a massive giant killing like you did against Fulham, when you then get a lower league team in the fourth round, do you have a main feeling of dread of what if we go out to them after beating a Premier League team? Or is it the other way round, thinking this is a brilliant opportunity, we're going to get to the fifth rounder?
Well, both really. And you get that throughout. I've had that throughout my career whenever I've played against a lower league opposition in a cup competition, that you always think of it as a great opportunity, but then you also think we can't lose. Like we cannot lose to this team. And I've had it later on at Wycombe where we've played against teams 3 or 4 divisions below, and we're thinking, what an opportunity. But these guys are going to come in, and like we've been as underdogs, they're going to be so up for it and come into our stadium, which for us is normal, but for them is a great experience. And you just can't be the ones who get giant killed, as it were. So we made sure, and I think at the time the run of the FA Cup kind of coincided with us going on a great league run and really consistent run. So at the time we had the momentum with us, and it's strange. I think after we lost to West Brom, the league form completely went out the window as well, and I think we went 7 or 8 without winning. So it's weird how it kind of all miles up like that.
And then I guess moving on slightly from Bristol Rovers, you had short spells with Oldham and Accrington again. I guess the Accrington one more notable because you helped reach the playoffs in that spell. So, were there any notable moments from those two? And what was the feeling reaching the playoffs? Because again, you joined and the team seemed to go on a run, which seems to be a theme of your career, to be honest.
Yeah. First of all, memorable moments, probably none from Oldham. Didn't really have the best spell there, best 18 months through injuries and through yeah, just other things. But
Yeah.
the Accrington one, I was really thankful for them to kind of give me another opportunity because my second year at Oldham, I'd had a couple of operations over the summer, so I was coming back from injury and got told I wasn't going to be involved in the first team and to train on my own and things like that. So it was I was in it was a really kind of tough place to be at personally, thinking that I've hardly played for the last year. Other teams going to give me an opportunity to kind of play, and thankfully John Coleman knew me from asking me to go on loan, and I loved it again. It was Accrington's. It's a great club. It's such a different. It might be different now, but from then it was a lot different to how every other club I've been at has been run and how they do things there. But that's their USP really, and there's a reason why they get success so much and so often. So that was a great experience, and yeah, like you said, we had a great run. I think we won some like 10 or 11 games in a row at home. We went on a long unbeaten run, and yeah, that coincided with getting into the playoffs. Unfortunately, the playoffs didn't end too successfully, and for me personally, getting sent off was definitely not a highlight. But for us at the time to get that far into the playoffs was a massive overachievement for the club, and yeah, I can't thank them enough for kind of restarting my career a little bit. So yeah, I'm thankful for them.
And then I guess after that, the next move was Shrewsbury. And I have to ask you about this one, unfortunately. Probably the most negative moment is the one you were involved in a relegation with. But talk to me about your
Yeah.
general experience there and then the feeling of being involved in a relegation campaign.
First of all, I signed there. I thought it was a step up. I wanted to be at a team who, as great a season it was with Accrington, I thought I wanted to be at a team who kind of had that arrogance to be like, right, we want to win the league, we want to get promoted, and they were a big club at the time in that division, so it was a good move. And that first year was up there one of the best years I've had in football with the promotion. I think we went unbeaten all season at home. We had a great set of players, great bunch of boys. There was 5 or 6 of us who lived within walking distance of each other, so we had a great kind of off-field connection with each other. Shrewsbury is a great place. I love living in for 3 years. It's such a nice place to live. And yeah, it started off great. And the third season, I think we went into the third season. I don't think we kind of signed players to kind of kick on. I think the signings, they weren't really kind of players who when you sign players at a club and you're there and they bring players in, you kind of get excited about them and you think, right, it's going to be a good season. At that time, I don't think we kind of kicked on enough, and from day one, it was just a struggle. And yeah, it culminated in us being relegated, which that's the worst feeling you can have in football. It was horrible. And on a personal note, I thought I did well. I thought I had a good season, but it doesn't really matter when things on the pitch for the team don't go to plan. And yeah, we were well relegated that season, and it was a shame because I'd loved every minute up until then, and at the time I would have loved to have stayed, and I think I got player of the year that season.
Yeah.
Season we went down, but the manager changed in the summer, and I had a phone call the next day after he got appointed, just saying thanks, but yeah, had to find somewhere new to play.
I guess that's the one thing I wanted to ask about, which is interesting you brought it up because a couple of others have as well. The feeling in the squad when you have a summer of signings, do you get an immediate impact when you return to pre-season or at the start of the season to think this is going to be a good year, or as you say, this is going to be a struggle? Do you get that as a club?
Yeah, 100%. And this summer was a similar feeling. At the start of the summer, the club was going through a lot of financial difficulties, And speaking to the manager over the summer and other players, and he was saying the budget's getting slashed, and we had a small budget in League One last year anyway.
Yeah.
And he was saying that we might not be able to have too many sign-ins, a small squad, and you start worrying about what kind of season we're going to have. But then things change, and you start seeing a couple of players sign in, and more keep coming through the door, and you're like, wow, we're signing this player and that player. We're going to be all right here. This could be an exciting season. And so it definitely does have an effect on how others, for new signers coming in, they don't know too much, but the players who are already there, and then it makes everyone kind of step up to think, right, is this the quality we're bringing in? I need to up my game to make sure they don't bring someone in my position to kind of take my place. So it definitely does have an impact on it. And as players, you want better and better and better players coming in all the time to kind of up the average of what you've got there already.
And I guess you've led on to your current club brilliantly, which is Wycombe Wanderers, where you've become probably a bit of a cult hero now. Been the longest spell of your career, and you've become a bit of a set-piece goal-scoring specialist as well at Wycombe as well, which was good to see. How have you found your time there? We've seen you a couple of times this season, but it's obviously become a home to you.
Yeah, I've loved it. To stay at a club for this long, in Leagues 1 and 2 doesn't happen too often. Wycombe's kind of a place where people do kind of stay and come back, and I've been there 6 years now. There's another player who signed me at the same time, still there. Matt Bloomfield's been there for 16 years, I think. So it's one of those places where I've loved it. I've loved being there. The setup's great. The training ground, the facilities are good, and I think that coincided with the manager being there the whole time, and him being such a great kind of rock for me to have there as well has been perfect. So yeah, it's been the happiest time of my career, and I can't thank the gaffer and the guys behind the scenes who you just become friendly with, everyone and things like that. So for me, I can't have enjoyed it any more than I have done, and thankfully we've had some success on the pitch to go with that as well. And hopefully I can stay there for a little bit longer.
And I wanted to ask you about Gareth Ainsworth, and we'll try and keep it quiet because I know he's linked with basically every championship job that ever comes up at the moment. But is he as good as he's anticipated in the media? He's obviously very highly rated. He's talked about with every job that comes up. Is he that good behind the scenes?
For me, it's not necessarily even about the tactical side and how he does things. It's just his man management and how he kind of just simplifies everything for everyone. He gets the best out of players. He doesn't try and ask for too much. As long as you're working hard, you're doing the simple things right for him, he's happy. That's all it is. And there's so many players who keep getting moved to kind of higher division clubs or higher to bigger teams in our league who always seem to come back. They love it here so much. We've had players who kind of take wage cuts to come to us. We've had players who pay part of their own wages to kind of come to us on loan just because they love it so much. And it's down to the gaffer and Richard Dobson creating the culture that we've got there of being open and honest, and there's no egos and things like that. The gaffer starts off by not being too high or too low. We could lose 5-0 on the weekend. On the Saturday, you still get your Sunday off. Monday morning, he'll come in being loud, his music's blaring, he's in the gym working out, and he's just like high-fiving people, and you're like, how can you not kind of really want to work for him? And he's so infectious that he's never then doom and gloom for the rest of the week and battering us, making us run, making us do extra things. So he's really kind of level with that, which as a player really helps. You know where you stand, and like I said, as long as you're working hard and performances are there, then he's happy.
That's brilliant to hear. And I want to ask you one more question about your club career at Wycombe, because you've scored probably one of the most bizarre hat-tricks in English football history. One, because it involved scoring 2 corners directly, and secondly, because you didn't find out until a couple of days later you'd got it. Did that mean something special to you, or was it just one of those things? Because to me, it seems like a pretty outstanding achievement, but for you, I don't know what it meant.
No, it was incredible. It was, I've the last few years I found myself, taking all set pieces, scoring a couple of goals and things, and I've never scored more than 1 goal in a game. I'd had an opportunity a couple of years ago against Luton where I scored a penalty and I missed another penalty in the game.
I was there for that one.
Just never... Oh.
I was glad when you missed, I won't lie.
Well, unfortunately, yeah, it was, and they went on and equalised. So it was just, I thought I was never going to be, and we the Lincoln game, I think there was a bit of hype around it. I think the Cowleys, I think it was one of their last game. They were hotly anticipated to go to Huddersfield after that game. There was no Prem or Champ games because of the international break. I think Quest came down and were filming it, and it was whoever won kind of would go top of the league, I think, and it was kind of the biggest game in the English Football League that day. So there was a bit of hype around it, and I think before that game we were sitting second or third, and we'd never been top of the third division, third tier in English football before as a club. So we knew we could make history that day by winning, and it was just a perfect performance. The gaffer set us up in a different way. We worked hard on Lincoln all week and set us up in a specific way, and we completely nullified them, and the performance was amazing. And I scored the free kick early, which is always nice to get an early goal, and you think, right, if I get an opportunity again, then there might be a chance to get another one. The corner went in. I didn't really know at the time what had happened. All the players kind of ran to me and said it was me and my goal, or no one kind of claimed it. When you know none of the strikers are trying to claim it came off their nose or their elbow or anything, then you know, then it's probably mine. And then we got a corner late on, and I remember the fans behind the goal were just screaming, shoot, shoot, shoot. And not that I specifically meant to hit it in the top corner, but we worked hard that week. I remember on set pieces, and the assistant manager was like, put it on top of the goalie, put it, towards the goal. And, I'd scored a couple the season before from corners just by causing a melee. So thankfully it went in, and I knew I'd got my 2 at least. I didn't know I'd officially got the hat trick. They gave me the ball after the game, which I was like, right, I'm getting it signed. I'm claiming it straight away. And then the media guy at Wycombe luckily rang me on the Monday, I think, and said, we've got it. We've sent it off to the dubious goals or whatever, and they've awarded it to you. You've got a hat trick. So, yeah, it's something that no one can ever take away from me. I've managed to score a hat trick somehow, and yeah, for Wycombe, it was just crazy. They were saying their social medias were blowing up just because it's such an unusual hat trick.
Brilliant. And I guess I want to move on as well quickly to talk about international honours. You've been lucky enough to captain your side, Wales, at under 21 level. And I wanted to talk to you a bit more about your senior experience as well, because you've been in the squad multiple times, but never got to make that appearance. And I know it's probably not the nicest question to ask, but what's that feeling like?
First of all, just to be involved, the 21s was an unbelievable experience. We were so close to being the first under 21s team to qualify for a major tournament. And we won our group, which wasn't actually good enough. We had to play in the playoff and lost to England over 2 legs, 5-4, I think it was, which was hard to take because I thought we probably deserved to get some more from the game, and that was unfortunate. But that season, I think I ended up being called up to the senior squad for a couple of games in the summer, and unfortunately, I didn't make onto the pitch. But just to be involved in it was an amazing experience. We played their last warm-up game before the Euros, I think, and they had Van Nistelrooy, Schneider, Van der Vaart, Robin, Van der Sar, all these huge names playing it, and it was like, I was like, what am I doing here? And I kind of spent the whole game warming. I was having a look at, like, Dirk Kuyt was like warming up, so I'd be like, I'm going to go and warm up and see what he's doing down the touchline, just to be near these players. It was such a surreal experience. Again, I was, unfortunately I didn't get on, but just to be around it was like so special for me. I was like a really proud Welshman growing up, used to go to games and things like that. Yeah, to be involved and to manage to play for the under 21s however many times I did was really proud moment for me.
Fantastic. And I guess we'll move on quickly to some quick fire ones before we get to the final question. We always do for pros that we have on. Who are the best players you played with and against?
Probably going back to that Wales under 21s team. I was fortunate to play with Gareth Bale, with Aaron Ramsey, Joe Allen. So those 3 were always miles ahead of everyone. For me, the best player I played with was Aaron Ramsey. I played with him at Cardiff in the reserve teams a couple of times. Even in the 21s, they used to take him out of school to kind of play in these games when he was 16 and we were all 20 years old, and he was the best player by now then. So, and then in club career, we last season or season before, we had a player, Eberechi Eze, from who's at QPR now.
Yeah.
He if he's not playing for England and for in a top 6 Premier League team within a couple of years, I'll be so surprised. He's such a huge talent. He's very similar to Aaron Ramsey, the way he plays and glides past people and can find a pass. And yeah, I'll be surprised if he doesn't get a big Prem move this summer. But yeah, for me, he's probably, out of the club players I played with, he's the best. Yeah.
I couldn't disagree. I mean, we played against him with Luton earlier this season. He's by far the best player I've seen in the Championship this year. It was ridiculous. He tore us apart on his own.
It's really strange because going back earlier about when players developed, I think he came out the other day and said that he'd been released by 3 or 4 clubs growing up, and I think Millwall didn't want him and things like that. And when he came to us from QPR, I don't think they were too interested in him, but he came to us, and there was one game where he scored 25 yards with his right foot, 25 yards with his left foot into the top corner. And everyone's like, wow, this kid is ridiculous. And I think from that minute, QPR were like, right, you need to get back here and play, and went straight back into their first team. And now he's the main man by far there. And yeah, he's ripping up Championship, so fair play to him.
Absolutely. And I guess the other thing we normally ask the pros is the best manager you've played under. And you've got, as you've mentioned during this interview, a few to choose from, a few good ones. So pick out your highlights from them.
Wow, I've had so many different kind of managers. I've had managers from Gareth Ainsworth, this is his first major job, and how infectious and loud and outgoing he is, and to Graham Turner at Shrewsbury, who was just about to retire, who was older, a bit more old school. But for me, Gareth Ainsworth has to be my favourite one to play for. Just like I said, his consistency of how he acts towards the players is so good. It's such a nice feeling as a player to know where you stand the whole time. Like you said, you know nothing changes, win, lose or draw. He's all about performance. And like I said, he makes it so simple that if you do the right things for him on the pitch or work hard, then he's happy, and he doesn't ask for anything more than that. And as a player, it's helped my game massively that I don't have to worry about all the other things. I just concentrate on what he wants me to do, the few basic things that he likes from me, and if I do that, then he's happy and I stay in the team. So he's helped me massively. The reason why I've probably played so many games as I have done the last few years. And yeah, I really enjoyed playing for him, and I've said hopefully he stays and I stay for a couple more years. Just yet.
Brilliant. And I guess the final question, which we always ask everyone, it's the main question of the series, and you can have 2 as a pro, is your favourite games you've ever been involved in or you've watched. So I'll give you one as a player and one as a fan. Your favourite ever football games?
Oof. Favourite games to play in? Yeah, I've been lucky. I've played in a couple of promotion-winning games and things like that. I'd have to say the Lincoln game earlier on this season was pretty special, scoring a hat-trick. That's not just a hat-trick. I think I played one of the best games, take away the goals, that I have done for a long time, and that was, I was very pleased with that game. Games that I've watched, going back being a Cardiff fan, Cardiff played Leeds in the FA Cup in 2001 at Ninian Park, and Leeds were top of the Premier League at the time. I think they'd been in the Champions League semi-final, came down with all these superstars in Cardiff. They're from League One or Division, whatever it was called back then, the equivalent to where we are now. And we just made such a hostile environment. There was sendings off, and Scott Young, like a Cardiff legend, local guy, scored a winner late on. And it was pitch invasion. It was crazy. The atmosphere was incredible, and that was one of the most enjoyable games and crazy games that I've ever watched. Yeah, so I'd say that one.
Fantastic. It's a brilliant way to end. I can't thank you enough for joining us and giving us your time. We really do appreciate it, and some fantastic moments you've had in your career, which have been outlined in the last half an hour or so. So thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks a lot.